Ever add saturation to your footage and it's just look off? Colors start breaking, skin tone go neon and the whole image feel harsh. That's because not all the saturation tools work the same. And if you are not careful, you might be ruining your grade without even knowing it. You probably heard people saying HSV is most reliable way to add saturation. And yeah, it can be great for boosting color. But when it came to pulling saturation back, HSV actually falls apart. It lifts your image, crust contrast and make things look weirdly flat. So in this video, we are breaking down how saturation really works, from standard saturation to color boost to density DCTL and even a hidden saturation control inside your color space transform. Let's try how all this works. So we are going to start with standard saturation. Alright, before we go further, let's make sure we really understand the three pillars of color: hue, saturation and luminance, also known as HSL. Let's start with hue. Hue refers to the position of color on the color wheel. What gives a color its basic identity, like red, green, blue or yellow. It does not include how bright or dark the color or how intense, just the general type of color. Saturation. Saturation is intensity or purity of color. A color at full saturation is vivid and rich, but when you lower the saturation, the color starts to fade and becoming more gray and muted. No saturation at all. That's just a black and white. And finally, luminance. Luminance is how bright or dark a color appear. It's nothing to do with the color, just how much light it seems to have. Think of it like adding white or black to a color. Increase luminance, it get lighter. Decrease it, it get darker. So let's talk about standard saturation control. It's probably the first tool most people use when learning color grading. But here's the thing. Standard saturation does not just push color. It also affects luminance. Meaning, as you crank it up, your color becomes more saturated. But it's also brighter. That's because standard saturation works in RGB space. So it increases the intensity of red, green and blue value equally, which naturally impact the image brightness. This can be a problem, especially if you are going for filmic, control or stylized look. You want to add saturation, sure, but not at the cost of contrast and tonal balance. The problem with this method, when you increase saturation globally, it boosts all color equally, already saturated area becoming oversaturated and clipping, and it also affects luminance value of color. You seen color in film feel more dense. We can't achieve dense color with this method. This method increases whole footage saturation, but their way if you want to increase standard saturation in a selective manner. Make a new node, go to color space and select HSL. Another great way to control saturation in your footage is by using HSL curve. It's still based on RGB color space. It's give you much more control than just cranking up the saturation wheel in log section. Let me show you how to use it. First, create a new node, then go to color space and select HSL. Now jump into the curve section, and here red curve represent hue, green is for saturation and blue is for luminance. We will be working with saturation curve. This curve control how saturation is applied across the range of existing saturation level. Push the curve to the left from bottom. You increase saturation in areas that are less saturated. If you want to boost saturation only in lower saturation area like the dull skin tone, just lift the bottom left part of the curve. If you lift the top right, you are increasing saturation in areas that are already colorful. So use that with a caution. Now let's add saturation to whole footage, and from the bottom part of the curve you can desaturate the shadow areas. If shadow areas are getting too much color, you can pull down the saturation in the darkest part. Let's say if I want to boost only her skin tone, I just pull up the lower part of the curve. You can see it only affects her skin tone. It does not touch the background or other colorful element. If you want to just add saturation to dullest color without messing the curve, then let me introduce two new powerful tool, which is color boost in primary wheel. Ever try adding saturation to your footage but you didn't want to affect the entire image? Yeah, sometimes you just want to bring it up muted tones without pushing the already vibrant part over the edge. That's where the color boost comes in. If you ever use Lightroom, this is very similar to the color vibrance. Instead of blindly increase saturation across the board, color boost focus on the less saturated area of your image. It gives priority to duller color, leaving already saturated areas. This means you get more balanced, natural looking result without blowing out the image or making it feel like over processed. So next time if you want to subtle pop, skip the main saturation control, try color boost instead. See, increasing saturation is one thing, but reducing it while maintaining color integrity, that's the art most people overlook. A lot of beginner think HSV saturation is always better option, and yeah, HSV is powerful method when you are adding saturation. It push color in a very bold and punchy way, but here's the catch. When it's come to subtractive saturation, removing color, HSV actually perform worse. It's tend to brighten up the image in unnatural way. It can destroy the mood you built in your grade. On the other hand, standard saturation, like what you find in your basic color color wheel or node control handle desaturation much better. It pulls back color without shifting the luminance or making the image feel washed out or overly bright. Let me show you. Let's desaturate this clip using the log wheel section in HSV curve mode. You will notice it brightens the entire image. The shadow lift, the highlights start to feel crunchy, and the whole footage loses that cinematic balance. When we try to desaturate our footage using primary wheels, the saturation fades in a linear way. If you're trying to desaturating with the HSV, something strange happens. Instead of color fading naturally, the whole image starts to lean toward white. In standard saturation, color like red and blue become darker as they desaturate, while yellow shift toward white. But with the HSL saturation, all the color eventually lead to white, which can look flat and unnatural. If you want to increase global saturation, so let me show you the best way to add film-like saturation. Even when you adding saturation with HSV, it can quickly make your footage feel like intense and harsh, especially in skin tones in neon colors. So what's the solution? Before you touch the HSV saturation, first, reduce a bit of color using standard saturation control, either in basic node or using the primary. Once you pull things down just a little, add back in some target saturation using HSV. This layer approach gives you way more control and results in a richer, more natural look without breaking your image or make it feel overcooked. You can make this method even more powerful by switching to the HSV curve, just like the HSL curve. This lets you control saturation but with more precision. Let's say you only want to add saturation to the midtone. With the HSV curve, that's super easy. The process is similar to what we learned in HSL curve, but here the key difference. HSL curve are based on the RGB color model, while HSV curve work in a way that's let you isolate and affect part of your image more surgically. If you pull the curve from top to left, you will add saturation linearly, just like we did in log wheel section. The real power comes from the placing multiple points on the curve, so you can boost certain areas while protecting others. You can create as many points as you need to isolate color. This is going to be advanced tip, saturation compression. Some part of the footage have colors that are too saturated and other have lower saturation. If we try to adjust the overall saturation, whether we increasing or decreasing it, the effect it apply to the entire image. But when we actually need to control especially over the oversaturated color only, we don't want to affect the already desaturated or balanced color. This is where special tricks comes in. That trick is called saturation compression inside the color space transform. Saturation compression is a feature that analyzes your image, find the oversaturated color and bring them under control without touching the rest. Saturation max set the hard limit, the maximum saturation allow before clipping. I will adjust both of these based on my footage. Usually I dial them down slightly to make sure the saturation does not exceed Rexona and gamma limit. This helps prevent color from clipping or breaking as they move from scene referred to display referred space. But if you are already working on display referred workflow, you can just apply color space transform, enable saturation compression and dial it down until you find the sweet spot. If you want, I make dedicated video on this topic explaining all these options. Let me know in the comment section. Density DCTL. It basically increases saturation but in a way that also adjusts luminance to create deeper and rich color. The best part, you don't need to worry about setting up the color space, disabling channel. This is a great tool if you want to manipulate certain hue color and adding density and saturation. You don't need to switching curve tab and create a perfect hue selection. You can manipulate hue, saturation, density in just one tab. And here's a quick tip. Press G on your keyboard to get a bigger preview window so you can see the color channel more clearly. By the way, this DCTL designed by the Ravi Shankar. Let's try it out. If I want to make a green denser, I just select green and push the green slider. We can also increase saturation in very subtle manner, and you also get global level saturation and global density in a one place. It is super easy to manipulate any color, and honestly, it's a great tool to add to your node structure. Hey, if you find this video, I almost forgot this one, HDR Palette Saturation. Jump into the HDR color wheel and you will find two sliders, exposure and saturation. Now, this is not your basic saturation. When you adjust saturation in the HDR palette, you will notice skin tone stay intact, hue remains stable, and the image just feel cleaner and more cinematic because this tool does not rely on standard RGB color model math. The HDR wheels use a complete different algorithm on that add saturation without hue shift or breaking your image. It's specially used for things like boosting the density of skin tones, enhance color depth, and give you a stable filmic richness without the usual side effect. Hey, if you find this video informative, make sure you hit the like button and also subscribe our channel for more color grading sessions.